Hi, everybody. Welcome to this amazing conversation, which is ongoing with some of the thought leaders around the world that I have worked closely with and admired. And today we're going to be talking about opening yourself up to healing, because this is all about transformational healing, these free conversations on Facebook and YouTube. And today I have a really special guest who has been a really close colleague of mine for many years now. I think probably 10 years, Salah.
Oh, it's probably more than that. I think 2006 is the first time I attended your conference. And
Oh my
so
goodness.
it's been already 13
It's
years.
been a long time. And he came up to us in our offices and said, I'd like to host you over in Kuwait. And
Yeah.
we've been doing events together ever since. And he's introduced me to the Middle Eastern audience, all of the nations in the Gulf states. And I've introduced him to the West because we've done some very special intention experiments together. Just to let you know, by the way, Dr. Salah AlRashed is essentially, this is for my Western audience, he's essentially the Deepak Chopra of the Middle East. I mean, he essentially introduced personal development to the Middle East. And he has done all sorts of things. He's a best-selling author. He is a peace activist, a very noted, outspoken peace activist who set up Salah groups, which means peace, all around the Gulf states. Who meet, they're groups and they meet every week in different locations, different cities around all the Arab nations. He is setting up a special holistic healing center in Egypt now, and he'll probably mention some things about it. And he's been my partner on two amazing intention experiments. In both of them, we were trying not to heal individuals, we were trying to heal nations and warring nations. So in the first, which was the 10th anniversary of 9/11, he and I devised an experiment whereby we would invite my audience from all the Western countries and his audience from all the Arab countries to join forces and send an intention to lower violence in the two southern provinces of Afghanistan. So yes, according to NATO statistics afterward, we had an unprecedented effect on lowering violence in those two very high violent areas. They were the stronghold of the Taliban. That wasn't the interesting part of the story. The interesting part of the story is what happened on Facebook. You know, Dr. Salah and I jointly apologized for what happened with 9/11 and its aftermath. But what was amazing is the Americans and the Arabs started writing to each other. They started befriending each other and they started forgiving each other. And then the second one we did a few years ago was with Dr. Salah's special studio in the south of England that enables us to have two-way conversations with lots of locations. And we had, I think, cameras in 8 different Arab cities in conference rooms. And the 9th camera was in an auditorium filled with Israeli Jews. And so we had these two areas from two polarized societies come together to do an intention for Jerusalem. And afterward, that was the amazing part. We had Arabs saying, apologizing and saying, my God is your God to the Israelis, and Israelis apologizing and saying, we love you. Our God is your God. And this amazing outpouring of love and sharing and peace, which was just so extraordinary. So we've done a lot of things and a lot of other events together, but today we want to talk about healing. And I mean, you've seen so much of this, Dr. Salah, in so many of the areas that you have hosted and provided yourself. And we've talked about the whole idea of opening yourself up to healing. What does that mean to you, do you think?
Well, to me, well, first of all, thank you, Lynne, for having me. And this is an honor to be with you. It's 13 years ago when we were reading, your book, I thought this was the source, that all the noted speakers always refer to it. And I remember speaking to one of your assistants, and then, you gave me an appointment for only 20 minutes in 3 months' time.
I didn't know who I was dealing with.
That we break the rule. We sat down, I think, for 2 hours talking, so and it was emotional, and that's good. That started something really big, and thank you very much. But to me, it means opening up, meaning to really go beyond, go beyond medicine today, go beyond all the schools like we've did in history. When science came first, it was attacked by the religious people, and the scientific people, or those revolutionists at that time, were sacrificing so much because they were calling them infidels, and they sacrificed their lives, like Galileo, for example, and other scientists. It also happened when religions came, let's say like 3,000 years ago, when this era, or 4,000 years ago, when Buddha was in the east and Krishna was in the middle, and then all the prophets like Jesus, Muhammad, and Moses they were also revolutionary. When they started their movement, it was it revolutionized everything at that time. But then, like always, when there is a power, there comes those people who are interested in the authority, and then change this power to serve them. So when religion was very powerful, came the clergies and the religious people, and then turned all this power to themselves. So it was serving them as 1% or 2% of the whole population, while everybody else felt afraid because those people speak in the name of God. So that was scary at that time. So when the church took over, for example, in the West, the scientists really sacrificed. The Middle East was doing great because it's just started a new revolution. It's supporting the science and so on. So the Middle East was coming with chemistry, physics, medicine, astronomy, astrology, and all the other sciences and non-sciences too. But arts and science was gloom. But then science was suffering. This is something new. So they were called all kinds of names. But as science got stronger now it's also, again, the same story is repeated, like it happened with religion. Now it's happening with science. So I don't know what we would call ourselves, but I just call it a timeline, because if I call it spirituality, then, it takes another name. But we also, when we look at science today, and it's how it is manipulated, say, take medicine as an example, we think that the whole story is repeated again. And so they call those people pseudoscience, sorceries, they give them all kinds of names like they did with the scientists at that time. Although most of us today, like most of the scientists then, come from the same background. Like most of us are scientific anyway. Like my background is all scientific. I did a Bachelor of Science. I did a Master of Science. So even my studies were scientific. Even my O-levels were like biology, chemistry, physics, economics, and in English. But I mean, that was also science, So it was, and when in the trips, about 100 people you've shared in some of our trips, I asked 100 people how many medical doctors we have, and we have like 10 or 15 out of the 100 people there, And then another 20 people also with physics and chemistry and so on. So we also come from scientific backgrounds, like the scientists at that time came from religious background, like Newton was religious, like all the greatest thinkers then, they were also. But to me, healing also is opening up again, and I just want to warn, because now we're getting bigger and bigger. 20 years ago, we were suffering. We couldn't find enough people to talk to. Today, we have hundreds of thousands. I'm sure like right now, there are hundreds of thousands watching at this time. Now, as it becomes powerful, because now we're getting more and more powerful people to join that world movement, we need to be careful also before it gets to be manipulated again, because that's my expectation, it will take over science. Very soon it will take over science, and then it, or as you would put it in your book, which was magical, and how you ended the field, where spirituality is coming nearer to science, and science coming to spirituality, probably coming to a new movement. So when we talk about healing or anything else, also I could see it on that term, see it as it is opening up to all possibilities, which not just to science or what they would classify as mainstream science, And again, like science when came, not like just religion, but it's like all kinds of thoughts. Then science does not contradict with religion. I mean, if it was the correct, starter. Same here, what we're talking about when we talk about healing or spirituality, does not contradict with science. If you take it, seriously, like for example, I've seen and you have seen, I mean, you formed a huge encyclopedia with the material of what doctors don't tell you. I mean, this is like a work of over 20 years, right? I mean, it's got
30.
Like 30. It's got so much research, so much numbers. So it's like today, it's the encyclopedia of all healing. That's why we take the honor to actually translate it into Arabic, and I'm sure now you've changed the name also. It's going to be Get Well, right? Or if it's already there, right? Yeah, we also changed the name, so in Arabic, so it will be Rafah al-Afiyah.
In the UK supermarkets, but yes. Okay. And we have a new Get Well show. It's really to tie in with the show, but yeah. So I know Salah is translating What Doctors Don't Tell You, as well as my books, into Arabic, which is fabulous.
Yes. And I understand that it is mostly done by medical doctors. Like the Arabic edition is also 10 people running the board, and 8 of them are medical doctors. So again, this supports the idea. Although changing the name was because of the misunderstanding. It might seem like What Doctors Don't Tell You means that they don't want to tell you this. No, it's just because they don't know. So, most of us don't know, So opening up, that's my we would put as first starter to open up to all kinds of ideas. So if you go to What Doctors Don't Tell You, 30 years of effort, you will find all kinds of alternatives and all kinds of healing all over around the world. And we keep also, registering these healing stories from everywhere. And sometimes it is from very small efforts. If time allows, I would probably mention 1 or 2. But that's how I see it. It's just opening to all kinds of possibilities and ideas.
I think that's such a great idea and a great opener. The idea that you really got to be open-minded, because there's 2 things that are really important that I could point out here, I guess, and just amplify. One is the whole idea that science is this kind of finite truth. That's our big problem all the time. We think that we discover something new and it just adds to this finite truth. And that once we know something, we know it for all time. But we have to understand that, like any story, science is just a story. In the past, we thought that rocks can't fall out of the sky. We didn't believe in meteors. We said, no. Many scientists said that can't happen because rocks don't fall out of the sky. We thought the earth was flat. We've changed our views as time goes on. And what happens is whenever there is a new discovery, it supplants what has been discovered before. And certainly the things I've written about in my last 4 books are very much about science being on the verge of a completely new story that describes us as far more than electrical and chemical signaling. We are much more dynamic energy systems, not only with ourselves, but with our environment, the people around us, the food we eat, the water we drink, the friends we have, the sum total of how we live our lives. That's interacting with us at every moment. So we have this very dynamical and new view of science that is coming along. And because of that, a lot of medical science still operates according to a paradigm that doesn't completely serve anymore, that is being replaced by this new and more expansive view of us being part of this giant energy field. Now, you've mentioned, and I have too, many, many doctors, not only who read What Doctors Don't Tell You, but who come on my retreats and my workshops and my year-long Power of Eight Intention Masterclass. You know, we have loads and loads of doctors on these. You have loads of doctors, pharmacists, professionals coming on your retreats and your workshops. So I see them there too. They want to hear this new story. But there's that. And then there's the second idea of us being so individual. Everybody I have talked to, interviewed, written about, edited, who has had a healing journey of some sort, has followed an individual path. Sometimes it was arduous. They had to try lots of different alternatives before they found the path. Sometimes it was instantaneous. I mean, I ran a Power of Eight group at a conference a few months ago, and a woman there was paralyzed from the neck down, and she had a motorized wheelchair. And I put everybody into groups and had them do a 10-minute intention for somebody they nominated in the group. And after it was over, I was asking people, as I always do, okay, who had an experience, raise your hand and tell us about it. And she not only raised her hand, but got up out of her wheelchair. I mean, we were all astonished. But that's how it happens too. I've seen this thousands of times in my workshops, in my retreats, in my Power of Eight Intention masterclasses. And what I find is it's a particular kind of opening in a bigger sense, of opening yourself up essentially to the life force, to the larger energy reality. And there's no precise prescription. I can give certain tools, as I do with these courses and these workshops, and people coming together in groups experience it. But there's also this amazing X factor, and I think it is the power of the group, the power of the people around you that make all the difference. Now, you've seen that too in a number of, I mean, you've got groups around the world now.
Have they joined with you?
Sorry?
Some of them have joined with you in the...
Oh, some of them have joined with it. We have a guy called Mohammed who came on our retreat last year. And we put people into groups, and it was Italy. So we named the groups after famous Italians. So he was in the Garibaldi group. And I just got an email from one of the members of the group asking a question and telling me that this is over a year since they've been formed. They're meeting every Saturday, as you know, absolutely religiously. And they've had amazing healing transformations. And of course, I see it all the time with my Power of Eight Intention Masterclass. And we've had a number of people from your community join us last year and years before. In that situation, I do a 6-week teleseminar on Zoom, as we are now. And then I put people into groups, and I monitor them, provide advice, guidance, healing ideas, experiments every week for an entire year. And plus I do bonus webinars to find out how people are doing, to answer questions, to provide more techniques, etc. So we're actively monitoring how they're doing all year long. And it's been extraordinary to watch because it's about the group. There's something amazing about showing up every week in a group. I find that when people are meeting religiously every week, week after week after week, pretty much close to 100% will experience some major life transformation, whether it's their health, if we're talking about healing, or if they're healing their finances, or they're healing their career or their relationships, or even providing themselves with a path for their life's purpose. It's really extraordinary. But it's about that group, I think. There's something really powerful about that. What have you noticed in your Salam groups?
Well, I've heard it maybe without exaggeration, hundreds of times, maybe even thousands of times. I've heard how people, and they are with us right now on Facebook and Twitter, and you could see them tweeting and posting all the time how their lives have changed. But the most amazing thing is I did a survey at the end of 2018, and 8,800 something people shared with that survey. So that's a big number to study. And then we did it again just last week. So that's one whole year. Those who shared in the end of 2018 and now the end of 2019. And already I could look, because statistics just show you the numbers and the colors. And it is amazing how people have just shifted. It's just, if you watch the statistics, like they shifted from being so bad or just good or very good, and the whole group has shifted just to be those more good, very good, and excellent. So this is not only happening to individuals, although I've seen it thousands of times. It has happened to me thousands. If you remember last year, I had a problem with my eye. I couldn't even see it. I don't know how I reached London when I met with you. I was driving, but that was dangerous. I shouldn't have done that. But I couldn't even see, like, if I looked 10 meters from here, it was, I don't know what happened, But then I thought, okay, I'm teaching people, this is time to practice on myself, So I spent time, with two things. I'm a big believer of combinations. I don't know why they work, but I've done tens, maybe hundreds of experiments where it's when I combine things, they do excellent work. So I combined a few things, but intention was the main one that I just worked on it daily. So I would probably use Ho'oponopono or use the intention, sending or something like that, and then, but at the same time with a little bit of extra diets, watching the diets, although my diet is usually good anyway. So, but I just watched it a little bit more, But today, when I was entering my center here in Kuwait, and then I looked on my right side and I looked on my left side, and I could see everything, I forgot about it, it's because when I used to enter the center, I look and I couldn't see if somebody was sitting, on the right side or sitting on the left side. So this is not only, of course, I've heard this, you've heard it also hundreds of times. I'll tell you a quick story. My cousin, his name is Salah too. And my cousin is a person in charge, and he's in charge of one of the big authorities in Kuwait. So they have branches all around the world, and he is in charge of those branches that are actually open around the world. But he's got something we call a psychologist astrophobia. So it's like, if there's thunder or lightning, he gets really fearful. So about maybe 5-6 years ago, when I met, when we were meeting in the family gathering, he told me about the story. And he said, when there is a thunder or there is a lightning, I don't even leave the house. So if I'm traveling and I'm going and I go in Kuwait, that's not a huge problem, because we probably get like 15 to 20 days thunder and lightning the whole year. So that's okay. He just sleeps at home. But in London, that's a big issue. Like if you go to London, if you go to the Philippines, if you go to Asia, and then he has to open these centers, he was telling me that when I go there, and then there is a thunder or lightning, I'm staying at the hotel. I don't even leave. I cancel the meeting. So he wasn't even losing his time. He was making us all Kuwaitis lose, because that's a huge company which is owned by the government. So we were all making a loss. So I was thinking, okay, I'm going to save the country. Can you do an exercise? And I did an exercise with him. And I told him first, how much you've been suffering with this? And he said, 12 years, and it keeps getting worse. And then in front of everybody in the family gathering, we spent about 10 minutes doing an exercise, and I did it with him. And he said, well, I feel okay, but I don't know now if thunder comes or lightning that is going to happen. Now, 6 years later today, A few weeks ago, I just asked him, and he said it never came back again. And the
Wow.
lightning or there is a thunder, I don't even notice. So I said, you don't cancel meetings no more. He doesn't. He retired right now. That was a bad time to retire. But such stories, like you mentioned about the lady, how she just she healed herself in minutes. We are demanding today as humanity that healing has to be quick, that healing has to be wide. It reaches many areas. We are demanding. Now, current mainstream science or medicine cannot offer that, okay? It's okay. We want to join and help all together to make it faster, to make it wider, to make it reach more people, to make it less expensive. Because we are spending right now one out of 20 of the world's budget just on health. So we're spending over $3 trillion a year over on medicine and medical issues. So we need to come, because we could spend this and doing other things. So this is, there is a big and huge demand to that it becomes faster, it becomes wider. If I have a disease, if I have to, I have to, but I'm not willing to spend 3 years to really treat that disease. Now, some people don't even spend 3 years. They will probably spend 20 years and 30 years live with such diseases. Nobody should live with a disease. Nobody should live with an illness. Everybody should believe in a cure, So if it doesn't work here, look somewhere else. That's what it means to open to healing,
Absolutely.
I don't believe anybody that said there is no cure. You just say, I don't know the cure. That's honest, because people ask me all the time. I might tell them, I don't know. You got to ask somebody who probably knows. I don't know, but I can assure you that there is a cure. Might not be with me, but you got to look for it.
Absolutely. I love that. And I think that's the issue. First of all, no one, even the most learned doctor, can say with any certainty how someone will respond to the challenge of illness, the challenge of having a condition. No one. And as I say, it's also individual. So if, the honest thing is to say, I don't know of it, but I'm sure there is pretty much a cure for just about every illness, a holistic cure in the main too. I think
the word cure is not used in medicine and not allowed to be used in medicine.
Absolutely. That's so true. They say, no, something's in remission. I mean, even when we hear people have cancer, I will say, think of it as an inconvenience. It is an inconvenience. And your job now is to find the solution. And that may mean knocking on lots of doors, or it may mean 10 minutes in a Power of 8 group,
Yes.
And it is opening yourself up to the possibility of healing and becoming probably the best detective. But I do want to say, for all of the doctors who are listening out there, that we're not rubbishing conventional medicine. I mean, if I get run over by a truck tomorrow, I want the best of high-tech medicine to glue me back together again. For certain acute things, modern medicine is without parallel, and certain surgical techniques are without parallel. But usually for most of the chronic or degenerative illnesses, the drugs and surgery approach doesn't work as well for lots of people as some holistic alternatives, or even the more esoteric ones, as I say, like getting together in a group and sending intention to someone with a health challenge. All of these, this, in my experience, has worked thousands of times. And it just suggests that our idea of healing, that you have to consume something that will fix you, is got to be really replaced by an idea of feeling love, overwhelming love, getting into a state of oneness, getting into a larger self. Those are the kinds of descriptions people give me when I'm talking about Power of 8 groups. I'm always trying to find out, well, what's working? Why does it work? What's going on? And most of the time, people describe being in a state of extraordinary oneness. I mean, I was fascinated, Salah, because after asking some people where they had extraordinary experiences, Power of Eight groups, one of them said, who was quite empathic and did lots of meditating, but she said this was really different. And what she saw, which was really amazing, in her Power of Eight group was light beams behind every chair in the circle. Somebody else described it when they had a knee that was so bad they were due to have an operation, and it was so wobbly she couldn't stand on it. And afterward, she said during the 10-minute Power of Eight group, she felt mitts on her hands, and it wasn't the members of the group. Something was gripping it tightly. And after that, she could walk normally. She did a deep squat right after our 10 minutes. So there perhaps are energy systems, entities we don't know. There's also that feeling they always describe of being almost out of their bodies. The woman I talked about, Maya, who stood up from her wheelchair, said, I felt I was being lifted up out of my wheelchair. The wheels were dropping off. She was in essentially an altered state. It was remarkable to hear that.
To mention if I could, when I'm a big believer of, the medical doctors are very good and excellent for diagnosing, so they can diagnose. Okay, again, if I also had a problem with my body, the first thing I would do is just I consult my friends who are medical doctors, probably go see them in their clinic or in the hospital, and I would do some testing. They're excellent in giving a diagnosis.
Yes,
because
definitely.
they study a long time. They study diseases. We have in the Arab world, they're called the Ministry of Health. I don't know if it's not called like that in the West, but probably you have something like the NHS or so. But it's called something also of health. But we call them here. But they have nothing to do with health. They are the Ministry of Diseases, or actually, let's call them to be honest. I mean, fair. They're the Ministries of Disease Management. They're the Ministries of treating diseases, can be, but nothing. Health is a different story.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a different issue. Health means diet. Health means sports. Health means good sleep. Health means movement. It's just something else. But so I'm a good believer that they can diagnose well. But now treatment can be 50-50 because now that's one choice that they have, which is, it's either surgery or chemical, substances they're going to use. So now, is that a choice? Sometimes it is a must choice. Sometimes we really don't have that much,
Sure.
so you can use it. But there are also other varieties of choices you got to open. So if as an individual, I would go to a doctor and diagnose whatever I have. Then I have the choice now to choose if I want to go further with the medication or surgery, or I want to see some other alternatives. That's now second thing. Now, third thing, I want to tell you, one of my masters, what he told me one time. He said, Salah, prognosis is a crime. Okay, now that's what we got to watch, for. Because a medical doctor has three things. He has diagnose, treatment, and prognose. Now, I want to tell all my friends, and all my friends know that, so they don't prognose anymore. Prognosis means that the doctor will tell how the disease will go. So he says, okay, now you got this, you got diabetes, and this is what's going to happen. For now, this is going to happen for the first year, and it's going to get a little bit worse in the coming 3 years, and then he tells him the story. And most people will take that story, install it unconsciously, and then activate it in their lives because that's an authority speaking to them, So I would tell all my friends, all my medical friends, please do not do that crime. Do not give prognosis to people. You can diagnose, you are legalized to do this. You can give treatment because that's the choice, now that you're not the only one that could give treatments, but once you give prognosis, that's when it gets dangerous, because some people will believe you. Last week, my nephew, he asked me that he's got a bleeding, and he's got diarrhea, and it's been going for weeks. So I said, why? What's happening? He said, did you go to the doctor? He said, I went 3 times to the doctor, and he told me last week that you're gonna live all your life with diarrhea. Okay, there is no choice to solve it. Okay, we might stop the bleeding, but you gotta take that medication. So I told him, so what did you do? And he said, I'm not going to take medication. He's a little boy, He said he's like 17, 18 years old now. But he said, I am not going to take medication. I don't care, uncle, I don't care, but I'm not going to take. I said, you're insisting? This is bleeding. This is serious. And this is diarrhea every day. And he said, I don't care. I will die, but not take medications, because this is what the doctor has told me. So I told him, okay, if you insist, then, okay, let's start very slow. And he said, I'll do anything, but I won't go to the doctor, and I will not take medication. So when I saw him insisting, I told him, okay, let's quit sugar, and let's quit gluten, and let's start a little GAPS diet. Okay, GAPS, it's our friend Natasha Campbell's famous. So let's start. So I gave him a few. So he called me yesterday, and he said, uncle, the bleeding has stopped, and the diarrhea has stopped. Now, this doctor has told him that it will never stop. Now, my nephew now does not believe not only in doctors, he doesn't believe in hospitals, he doesn't believe in clinics. He started swearing on the phone. I said, no, don't go that far, okay? Half of our families are medical doctors, so don't go that far. But this is the dangerous point that nobody should play. We should, if you want to give something positive for somebody, they always would actually tell you, you don't say too many positive things because you're cheating people, and but they're saying all these nocebos, right? I mean, if placebo does work, but they're saying all these nocebos which reaching people, and they are being harmed. That's
absolutely right. This whole concept of you got to tell the patient the truth. I go back to that original statement. Nobody can predict with any certainty how someone is going to respond to the challenge of healing. We have a panelist, Dr. Harold Gayer, and his former wife used to work in hospices, and that's of course a place where people go to die who have end-stage cancer, for instance. There's a certain number of people every year, she used to tell us, who leave the hospice. They get better. And she tried to figure out what it is. They have end-stage cancer. And usually it is people who don't allow that thought of, I'm going to die, that prognosis to enter. They also don't give it that much time. They sort of say, well, actually, I have to do this in my life, and I have to do that in my life, and I've got to do this. And, oh, yeah, I've got cancer, and I've got to deal with that. But it's kind of just down the list. But, and I've seen this there was a guy who had leukemia and was doing really well on it because he didn't know what he had. And then one day he went to see his doctor, and his doctor was out of the office. And so he read his notes upside down, and he saw leukemia. The guy died next week, the following week. And when they did an autopsy, they couldn't find anything that would have made him go from doing really well and living well and improving to suddenly going downhill. And what it was a label. It was a word. And that's the other thing that I'm really fascinated with. Holistic practitioners can be as guilty of this as conventional doctors, not only in giving a prognosis, but giving it a label, and a negative label, or giving the person's condition a label. I mean, I collect these. I collect some great ones, and these are from prominent holistic practitioners. It's going to be a long and tough road to getting better. Imagine what that does to somebody. Or you're a shadow of your former self. Or you're so much worse than I saw you last time. Or you're handicapped.
You're paying the consequences of a past life. Something like that.
You've heard that one. I love that. I mean, these are labels that, that when a practitioner uses this, you are creating the prognosis in the patient. The patient is so dependent on you at that time, is so needing to have a positive, upbeat environment, that doing that kind of comment, this is terrible, or something like that, is absolutely going to make them go downhill. I teach a course called Become a Better Healer with the Power of 8 for practitioners. And one of the things I talk about is not only their languaging, but their thinking. Because we now know that thoughts aren't just trapped inside your head, but they're trespassers. They go out and they affect the world. So if you are thinking, this patient is a no-hoper, guess what? That patient could be.
Yes. Yeah, it is something we gotta watch for all the time. Yes.
I mean, one of the most amazing things, I hope your audience knows this song. Freddie Mercury did a song called Another One Bites the Dust, and it starts out with a big thumping drum. Boom, 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 boom. Another one bites the dust. It goes like that. And bypass surgeons in the West love to play that song. It's a favorite when they're doing bypass surgery because it's got such a resounding thumping beat that it keeps them awake and alert through a long operation. But if people can absorb words, even when they're anesthetized, imagine what Another One Bites the Dust does to somebody's psyche,
Yeah. I mean, we use that in the music also. I compose music, so I've composed a few songs and that actually are composed on the pulse, So it would start, if somebody's stressful, we'd start like in a high and then go a little bit down. It's just like, we use it also for the relaxing, or we use a beat that would help, or the music also, So music is also another healer, another healing.
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
yes, it is.
Well,
yeah, absolutely. And another thing for opening yourself up to healing, I think, is the people around you, not just your healers, but the people around you, creating a supportive and connective environment. And of course, you've seen that, and I've seen that, the power of groups. What fascinates me is all the different reasons why groups could be so powerful and helpful. And this can be your family, your group of friends, or it can be even groups of total strangers. But it is the love and connection that I think is powerful. I mean, a group is, there's a psychologist, you probably know him from your studies of psychology, Salah, but French psychologist Émile Durkheim, very famous, who talked about groups and the power of groups having collective effervescence, some magical quality. So I'm fascinated by there is a pilgrimage that Indian people do every year, and it's massively overcrowded. They go to a specific river, massively overcrowded, basically a recipe for mass illness, and nobody ever gets sick because they're all collected together as a powerful group of doing this incredible pilgrimage. And that seems to keep everyone healthy.
The same story also on the Arab world. It's because in Mecca, which is the pilgrimage every year, there's a Zamzam well there, which is called Zamzam actually. And most Muslims, probably 95% Muslims, believe that this water is healing. So that's where they get the water, and you could hear thousands of stories, written about, and people wrote that how they drank the Zamzam water and then they healed themselves. This is another one. If you have the belief, that's one of the main aspects of healing, is to have a strong belief. If you have the strong belief, you have the intention that your beliefs the mind over the matter, your beliefs and your mind will actually take over. It will manifest. Whatever we believe, it will manifest. I like your idea of the new story because this is our slogan for the year 2020. We call it a new story.
Yeah.
Okay, so we call it news story. So I hope everybody joins us, even from the other, from the west side, because we call it the news story. So create a news story, a news story of health, a news story of your life, write a new scenario for your life, writing, health. And another one, when you mentioned the social aspect, that is important. And for years, the World Health Organization defined health as the absence of disease. I mean, you could never have a worse definition than this, because you're defining something by absence of something. I don't know how they accepted it. I don't know how this could be scientific. But later, they've changed now the definition, which is good. I do believe it's a good definition now. It's the state of physical, mental, and social well-being. So right now we have the three aspects. If we want to have good health, it doesn't work just to work physically. It doesn't work just to work mentally. But you could, include the social part, or you must include the social part. And I think you've done great work with this, with the bond, with the intention experiment, and with the power of eight, introducing practical, guides for how to do the social aspect of it. Because we have a lot being said about the physical side, a lot being said about the mental side, but the social side, people talk about it, and it doesn't. We cannot put it in practice. Now you've introduced this great idea, and we formed Salam Group because of your, from the intention experiment. That's how we took it, and then we started making these small groups. We have it now over 48 cities, I think, in the world. They meet every week, and they do the intention, because we will tell them this is the intention for this week, and then they will meet together in the intention. They just walk for about 30 minutes around the park or something, then sit down and make the intention. Now that's once we include these three aspects, that gives us the real health, even when we are under struggle right now, physically, mentally, or socially. When we include these three factors and balance as much as possible between them, that's when we start seeing results. We cannot exclude one of them. It's just I take very good care of my physical body, but I'm disturbed mentally, or I don't have a social well-being, then it's going to affect it. But once we do the balancing, physically, I'm taking care of myself. Now, I can't do it 100%, nobody can, but it's the balance, physically, but also mentally meaning my emotions, they're just not disturbed all the time. I gotta control my emotions, and deal with them. But my beliefs, most important also, it's just what I put in my mind, like the computer scientists would say, garbage in, garbage out, So if I put some good ideas in, good results come out. If I put some bad ideas in, bad results come out, So Mary Lee, her, she's our friend, and she's always with us on the trips, and her mother is 99 right now. And when we asked her, and she came with us in Malaysia one time, she walked the whole stairs, which was 500 stairs, and I was worried about her. Please, don't let her walk. And then she said, Salah, why are you worried about me? I said, because all the young people are not taking the 500 steps to the top of the temple. Don't worry, I'll do it. But when I asked Mary Lee, how could your mother do this? She says she's always got this positive attitude. And one time she said, I've had a great life. Actually, right now, she says, that's it. I've had a great life. I've had a good experience. It's okay. She even tells them that it's time to go, I said, that's not nice to hear. And she said, she's completely comfortable and peaceful with the idea. But I tell her how, we told her mom, what do you mean we had a good life? We had our house burnt. We had our father, which is your husband, died on cancer a few years ago. We had this and that. Oh, I never looked at it that way. It's just when we had the house got on fire, we just, we just went all together and we rented an apartment. We sat down all together and we felt really good. When your father died, we had, we moved all together. I just built a new farm and a new house. So she has all this positive attitude. This is creating health. This is creating healing.
Yes. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And it's so interesting. And maybe there's a fourth pillar, which is your spirituality, your belief in something just beyond yourselves.
It is, but I did it with I have an old book that I wrote about 20 years ago, which is called the Circle of Happiness. And I mentioned the 4 aspects, but today we do include spirituality within the mental aspect. You could, four factors.
Absolutely. Dr. Leo Gallen, who is a famous holistic and integrative specialist in the States, talked about the 4 pillars of healing. And one of those pillars was the social thing of your environment, because, that is such a powerful element. And we know that from all of the work that Dr. Bruce Lipton pioneered of epigenetics, I wrote about in my book, The Bond. And by the way, I just want to hold this up for your Arab audience. This is Dr. Salah's translation of The Bond. I have it right here. My latest, his most recent translation of my books. But he talked about this environment being so conducive to health or illness. And that means that your genes aren't controlling what happens to you. We always think genes are destiny. That's what we're taught. But he has demonstrated that a little quartet of atoms that sit above the genes are the things that turn those genes on or off. You've got to think of genes as a little set of piano keys that are just silent, waiting to be played. And what plays them is the stuff outside you. So that is everything from the food you eat and the water you drink, to the friends you have, to the environment you place yourself, how your family interacts. All of that is hugely influential on whether those genes get expressed or not. So even if you come from a family with a history, say, of breast cancer, there was a great study that looked at hundreds of thousands of women, they looked at, American study, who had taken the pill. And they wanted to refute the idea that the pill caused cancer. But they found a real excess of cancer among women taking, no, it wasn't the pill, it was HRT. So they stopped the study, but lots of other people, lots of other researchers wanted to use this vast database to do some other studying. And so one of them came forward and said, let's see whether or not a history of breast cancer means essentially you're going to be more likely to get breast cancer, history in the family, not among yourself. And they looked and looked and found there was no extra incidence among people whose families had a history of breast cancer and them getting breast cancer. The only key thing was some external thing like taking HRT. So genes aren't destiny. It's all about your environment. And for us, one of the most powerful environmental things, as I say, that I've studied again and again, is the power of groups. The need to belong just in something, even a small group, is so strong in us that I've written about this a lot in The Bond, that we need that more than we need to eat. We need to, the cruelest thing you can do to somebody is to ostracize them, because we need belonging, we need connection. And connection has been proven to be the most healing element of all. Possibly the best medicine you have is just loving connection with people. It protects you against stroke and even the common cold.
The Israeli professor Noah Harari, in his book Homo Deus, which just came out, he talked about that humanity, one of the main reasons why humanity has advanced, we could have been not that much advanced, and the pigs, for example, advanced more than us, or the monkeys, chimpanzees, or the lions, and we could be escaping in the caves while they are ruling the whole world today. But it's because of that point that humans at that time took the decision to do networking, made all this advancement, because networking created communication, and then it created advancement. And that's why today we are jumping, big jumps of changes, because we can network. You're in London, I'm in Kuwait, all those listeners in 160 countries, and we're communicating ideas. Whatever we've spoke about today, and whatever somebody is commenting down, it's just communicating with all those people right now. It's reaching the whole world. So networking or communicating, social ties are now today, it's very important. Actually, this is the one that made us as humans taken over the earth today. I don't know if that's a good idea or not, but that's the situation right now. And we are in the
depends on what we do with it. Yeah, absolutely. But that is so true. And we now need it. We need it. And I think this comes back to the idea of healing in groups and why it's so powerful. I think the idea of having a group of possibly strangers or people you don't know that well, sending loving, healing intention to you, just that idea in your mind is so strengthening that it becomes healing. And of course, that really leads us to a big conclusion we've been talking about with this whole hour, which is the idea that we are highly mutable beings. If a thought can make us better almost instantly, if that positivity can then turn all of those cells around to create health, then that says something really big and different about health and healing and wellness.
Intention is very important, that making the intention first, focused on keeping this intention going. There are so many things around us that are trying to get us out of focus, but we go back again to focusing on our physical, mental, social, spiritual, and keep continuing doing this and not getting lost. Because if we get lost, then we will be under the monopoly of all those people working on what we call the matrix. Then it will be just a number.
Exactly.
So, intention.
Absolutely. And that becomes an easier thing to do again in a group, whether it's a large group or a small group. I mean, we certainly saw lots of healings in our intention experiments together. Lots of people wrote about how their lives have been healed just being part of this bigger thing. But even with the small groups, somebody has your back. Journeying to wellness, whether it is financial, physical, related, mental, with relationships or whatever, it's a lonely journey. It's your own little private hell, essentially. But when you have it in a group, when you can work on it with a group, that becomes a powerful way to keep you on the track. And the other thing about a group is you make a vow to them. When people say, okay, we're going to send an intention for you to do this or such, or investigate this kind of healing thing, you're saying publicly you're going to do that. That also is really, really strengthening.
Yes. Yeah.
So we're almost at the end of our hour, Salah. It's flown by, but I wanted to give you a moment. Tell everybody about something you've got going that you want to tell them about.
For your side, I actually advise everyone to join, your program, which is the Power of 8. And these are the groups that make the difference, not only for themselves, but for everybody else. Now, if you are in the Arab world and you're not that great in English, you can join me. I'm starting the program in Telegram. It's Telegram. We have 90,000 people already joined in Telegram. Telegram is in my phone, so I speak to them all the time. So we're starting what we call the new story. Okay, so I'm gonna introduce a new program to them, and it's free of charge. Also, they can join the program. I'm sorry for those people who don't speak Arabic, only speak English. You need to join Lynn, okay? The other side. But for those who speak Arabic, they can join me on the Telegram, where we're gonna start a new story. And I hope, Lynn, you also join everybody else and all our friends to create a new story for the world, we need to make that move. You know,
Absolutely.
we need to create that new story. Okay, we've had enough of the old story. Now it's just we got to join all together and create our new story physically, mentally, socially, politically, and every other aspect.
Absolutely. And will they know how to join your Telegram?
Yeah, Telegram. If you just put smart way, then you know the channel will appear, and most of us, our guys that are watching, they're already there. So
Great. That's a very cool system. And it bypasses some of the social media these days, which is great. So
yeah.
for me, the doors are open at this time for my once a year Power of 8 Intention Masterclass. As I described before, it's 10 teleseminars in total from me, which is Intention Boot Camp. And then I put you in groups of 8 and I monitor, guide, challenge, and get you to do experiments to really achieve all of those New Year's resolutions that you may have. So if you want to find out more about it, of course, the course is in English, but we put people in their own time zones. So when we organize groups, we're mindful of where you are in the world, and we make sure that you're in people of a friendly time zone. So for people in the Arab states, we obviously put you with people who are in your same time zone. Although you'll have to hear me in English, you can run your groups if they're full of all Arab-speaking people. You can run your groups in Arabic. We have that with people around the world who are using different languages. So you find out about everything like this at my website, lynnmctaggart.com. That's lynnmctaggart.com. And I also have a podcast, again in English. It's called Living the New Science. So this is all part of that new story, Salah, is telling people about the new science and how they can introduce that in their lives.
Good. Excellent.
So it's always great to talk with you, and we have some very cool plans in the future. We are working toward.
Let's do it more often.
Let's do this more often. It's so great to speak with you, and we are planning. We've been kicking around an idea for some time to do a giant intention experiment where we've got cameras all over the world, and we are working on ending polarization. One of my first focuses is, of course, the Republicans and the Democrats being American, but I think we need this around the world.
Yes, we do. Thank you, Lynn, and for everybody also joining us. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody. I hope to see you again.